Cruise news time. Well, the CDC smacked down the cruise industry again. And people lose their mind. And I think I know what's going on. I got a theory. Let's talk about it. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Lido Loca. I'm your host, Tony, here with the latest cruise news updates. A couple simple goals today. This is really the second time that I've made this video. The first time I made it right in the middle of the hysteria, and I feel like I'm excited that I have an opportunity to retell that story today. For some reason, I could not release that video, and I think maybe that's there's a silver lining to that. So I'm going to talk today about what happened between the cruise lines and the CDC. And then I'm going to tell you why I think cruising is closer than we think. I think there's something that a lot of people are missing out there, but I tell you who I don't think's missing it, the cruise lines. And so I'm gonna lay it out there today. I'm gonna talk. I got data, okay? And so please, I see so many people just taking things as truth based on no evidence. At least I'm gonna give you some data. And look, I'm probably gonna make some people mad, so let me get this out of the way. If you enjoy talking about cruising, if you're a part of that cruise life, please consider subscribing with the notification bell on. That way you don't miss out on these episodes. And we'll start with the data now. The data shows that 50% of you are not subscribed. What are you doing? Please subscribe. Hit the subscribe button, the notification bell, and everybody else, real quick, hit the like button. Or if you hate me, hit the dislike button twice. All right. Let's talk about what happened on Wednesday. The simplest form of that story is this. The cruise line industry on Wednesday decided to make a run at the CDC. They were emboldened by what was going on in the world, and they make what I think is a very valid claim that the conditional sale order, which we're currently under, is based off of assumptions that were made back in October, back really probably in September or August of last year when the thing was being drafted. And those assumptions don't necessarily hold true to where we are today. Where we are in March of 2021 is drastically different from health and science and COVID. All of that is drastically different than it was in October. And so should the rules that were put in place in October apply to what's going on in March? The contention of the cruise industry was no. So they marched up that idea to the CDC, and very quickly the CDC said, I hear you, but no. What's in place now will stay in place. That's all that happened on Wednesday. If the cruise lines wouldn't have went to the CDC, it would have been a non-story, but somebody took that exchange and turned it into the CDC says that there will be no cruising until November. And that's just not the case. That is not true. We are still under the same test sailing process, the same 4-phase return to sailing process. And look, I completely agree with the cruise industry that this thing really isn't applicable today. But did they really think that just by asking the thing would go away? I think the thing's going to go away a different way. So there are 3 ways that this conditional framework for sailing, the CSO, can go away. One of the ways is that the director can just take the order away. This is what played out on Wednesday. The cruise industry asked the director of the CDC, could you please just make the order go away? They said no. Another way that it can go away is the order can't expire. This is the November 1st date that everybody freaked out about. The order actually expires October the 31st, 2021. And if nothing happens between now and then, the order could expire and we could resume cruising on November the 1st. I think that's the leap that major media outlets made, people on social media made. They took that date and said, well, because that date is in place, that must mean that cruising won't resume until November. But the reality is that date has always been in place. And then the third way that the conditional sale order can go away is that the emergency health declaration by Health and Human Services expires. So what is the emergency health declaration by Health and Human Services, and when does it expire? Well, this is an emergency health declaration around COVID that was put in place in January of 2020. What was going on in January of 2020? Well, the world was blowing up. We were yet to really get into the middle of the COVID game here in the US, but if you looked in places in Europe, if you looked at places in Asia, they were dealing with COVID-19. They were dealing with the new coronavirus. The coronavirus has been on the scenes for decades, but new versions of it come out or discovered from time to time, and one was discovered in 2019. They gave it the name SARS-CoV-2. Now, the interesting thing about SARS-CoV-2 is that when it infects a person, it makes them sick, it causes a disease, it causes a coronavirus disease, and they named that COVID-19, coronavirus disease-19. The D in COVID stands for disease. And the interesting thing about COVID-19, unlike some other diseases that have been caused by coronaviruses, is that it killed a lot of people quickly. This is what caught the attention of health officials in the United States in January of 2020, the rapid sickness and fatality rate of this disease. And that's what prompted the public health emergency declaration in January of 2020, is the reality of the leaders at that time that there was a killer disease making its way to the United States that would potentially wreak havoc in the country. Now, the way that public health emergency declaration works is that it is renewed every 90 days. And so that's what we've had since January 2020. We've had a renewal of this emergency health declaration. The last time it was renewed was on January the 7th, and it was an extension that took effect on January the 21st. So here's my theory. The most important date that we should look at as cruisers right now is April the 21st, 2021. This is when the current public health declaration is set to expire. If the emergency public health declaration expires on April the 21st, 2021, then the conditional sail order will go away and cruising can resume. What is the likelihood that this will not be renewed? Well, the last time it was renewed in January, administration officials said that this thing will likely be renewed throughout the entire year, that they would give states a 60-day in advance warning that it was going to expire. But much like things are a lot different than they were in October of 2020, things are a lot different than they were even in January of 2021. Administration change in January of 2021 with the goal to get 100 million Americans vaccinated in the first 100 days of the new administration. Well, we've seen that already happen. We've seen 100 million people vaccinated, I think, in 58 days. And now there's a new goal to get 200 million people vaccinated in the first 100 days. And so, again, the same thing. Are the assumptions of October good for March? Are the assumptions of January good for March? Just because they said they feel like that this thing will be extended throughout the whole year, does it mean it will? I don't think it will. I think there's data reasons why it won't, and I think there's political reasons why it won't, and I'm going to go through those real quick. And hey, just a teaser, Carnival's not canceling June for a reason, and it's not because they want people's money. They don't want people's money until, they extended the final payment date. They're not looking for payment until April the 30th, 2021, 9 days after April the 21st. Let's look at the data. All right, so I am on the saddest data of the whole COVID thing. These are the this is the deaths from COVID. All right, so let's look at where we're at today. March the 25th, we have a 7-day average, 1,119 deaths. That's still crazy. That's a lot of people that are passing away from COVID-19. Now, the last time that the declaration was extended was on January the 7th. Let's see where we were at then. So on January the 7th, we were 2.5 times more fatalities at that time, 2,780. All right, now let's swing over to where we were at the peak in 2020. So we're even below the peak in 2020 at 2,228 average deaths. So COVID is claiming less lives than it was the last time that this was extended. Of course, it begs the question, have the fatality numbers gone down enough that when we approach April the 21st, that this public emergency will be declared over, or will we extend it? This is the key question. This makes April the 21st the most important date. So I think taking it all in, taking in the data, taking in what's happened over the last few months, the lessons learned over the last year, I think you can start to see that we're getting close to an end of when COVID-19 is a public health emergency, because as more and more people get vaccinated, less people will die from this disease. And while preventing death is not the only component of it, I would argue argue that it's the most important component of it. And, you know, that's why people freak out. Like when you have, you know, thousands, hundreds of thousands, any number of people dying from something that didn't exist a year ago, that's a pretty big deal. And I really think that that's what we've been dealing with. All right, so let's get crazy. Let's throw some politics into it. The current administration has been signaling that they would like to return to normalcy, that they believe that even by July the 4th, that the July the 4th celebrations will be some sort of normal time gone by. And wouldn't that be the makings of a political victory lap if the United States returned to some level of normalcy by July? Now, there's a lot of political theory out there. There are some that say that this COVID disease will be perpetuated forever because it's all about control. Now, look, I'm fairly cynical when it comes to politics. I do not like the U.S. political system because it's based on an adversarial, contentious relationship between the two parties. I don't like any system that is built not so much on cooperation, but on winning, on fighting each other. And that's what I see. I've been following politics before I could even vote. So for well over 30 years, I've been watching. This is what I think, and this is where it may get crazy for you. I think politics is essentially rich people arguing over power and figuring out the best way, the best language, the best rhetoric, the best ideas that they can use to manipulate people to give them power. I don't think I'm alone in the idea of thinking that the things that politicians say most of the time are not what they mean. I believe that politicians say things so that they can get people on their side, so they pander to the worst fears of people, and then in that, you end up with a couple groups that are happy to be enemies with each other and say horrible things to each other and fight with each other and not work with each other. Also, the people at the top can have some sort of power. I don't like it. And so if we want to talk about will the pandemic continue forever because there is a level of control that could happen, the political thing that I like better, and you can track this all throughout political history, the person that takes the job of the previous person, there's no more proud moment to stroke the ego of the new leadership, whether it be an individual leader, a party leadership, than to say, I did the job better than the person before me. Speeches are dedicated to pointing out how better the person that's in power is than the person before them. And so look, this has been unprecedented. This is one of those lifetime, year-long shutdown health crisis, more so than control. What would be a bigger feather in the cap of the people that are ruling right now than to say, look, we only been on the job for a few months. We got it done. We ended this whole thing. We are so much better than the people before us. As an ego-driven, power-hungry political machine that exists on both sides in the United States, to me, that's the best story. So I believe that there is a political motivation to end the public health crisis. I think that that would get more political capital, more political bang for the buck for the people that are in at the next election cycle. And it so makes me upset that this whole health crisis has been politicized. But how about that? The next set of elections, the next, who ended COVID? How about that? And it's mind numbing. And so, yeah, I think that there is a data reason for the public health emergency to come to an end. And I think there is a political reason for it to come to an end. And it's all about the same political BS that we see all the time anyways. But look, if that means that we have a handle on COVID and that all these restrictions can start to go away and we can get back to normalcy, fine. I'm ready for it. And like I said, I think Carnival's thinking about it too. That's why they're not canceling June. Royal not canceling June. NCL, the only cruise line to cancel their June cruises, because I believe something is afoot and somebody is looking at this date, April the 21st, 2021. And I certainly will be. What do you think? Is this too crazy to consider? And I don't think it is, because I've seen some of the stuff that you guys consider with zero evidence. So think on this for a little bit. There's data, there's political motivation, and it's all good if it's true. What do you think? Pie in the sky? Could it happen? Leave a comment below. Tony for Lido Loca. And until the next time, we'll see you on the Lido. Bye.